What if I told you that St. Christopher, who is often depicted as a dog-headed saint, actually was a dog-headed saint? And not only that, but I could prove it. Would you keep watching? You see, not only have these dog-headed creatures been talked about throughout history, but I actually found one. A petrified one. A really, really, really well-known petrified one. But before I show you actual evidence of the Egyptian demigod Anubis's remains, I gotta build a case. And I'm gonna let a few people who have built the case for this do this for me.
Throughout history, there have been numerous accounts of dog-headed people living in distant lands. You've probably seen images of the cynocephalus before. Cyno means dog, and cephalus means of the head. For example, you've probably seen the Egyptian god Anubis, the god of death and embalming. Anubis has been found in Egyptian tombs, and he has the body of a man and the head of a jackal. This is a cynocephalus. The detailed written accounts by explorers, conquerors, and missionaries of these cynocephali in India, Asia, Africa, and Europe are actually rather consistent. In fact, these strange beasts were described in writings as recent as the last few hundred years. There are clear depictions of cynocephali in the writings of St. Augustine, Alexander the Great, Marco Polo, even Christopher Columbus.
Maps as recent as the Piri-Reis map of 1513 actually depict the cynocephaly. I found pictures of this map, and guess what? These beings are on here, clear as day. Not only once, but twice. Here's a still image of it, and it's a real map. I verified it.
One of the earliest accounts of the cynocephaly dates back to around 400 BC. In Indica, Greek physician Ctesias describes the wondrous land now known as India, where trees grew to staggering heights, elephants roamed the jungles, and a race of dog-headed people inhabited the lofty and inaccessible mountains. They speak no language but bark like dogs, and in this manner make themselves understood by each other. They understand the Indian language but are unable to converse, only barking or making signs with their hands and fingers by way of reply.
Notice they're talking hands and fingers, not paws.
Of course, the infamous John Mandeville also published an account of the cynocephaly in his travels, which circulated in the mid to late 1300s. This account is more similar to Ctesias in that the cynocephaly are described as intelligent and reasonable, even devout, with the only odd characteristic being that they tend to eat their prisoners of war. After that isle go men by the sea ocean, by many isles, unto an isle that is clept Nakumera, that is a great isle, and good, and fair. And all the men and women of that isle have hounds' heads, and they be clept cynocephalies, and they be full reasonable and of good understanding, save...
Now, St. Christopher is not only said to be a dog-headed being, but also a giant being. A giant so big that part of the reason he became a saint is because he was carrying people across this river, because he was so tall in it that he could carry people on his shoulders. And it was even said that he helped carry Jesus across when Jesus was a child. So up until this point, I've only presented you evidence from other people, other people's stories, other people's maps depicting these beings. But this is where I come in. This is where I seal the deal and hopefully open your eyes to the fact that not only did these exist, but they existed on a stature bigger than your wildest dreams. What I want to first remind you of is there have been giants here. The Bible talks about it, and we see evidence all around us. Evidence of the mountains literally being petrified giants, titans in fact. And let me also remind you that not only were there giants, but there was wickedness in those days. There was cannibalism, and there was hybridization of humans and animals. And this is where I really step in. I had heard that this giant cave that resembled a dragon was in Egypt, so I wanted to explore Egypt. But instead of finding this, I found something much, much bigger. I found the literal corpse of petrified Anubis right in the middle of Egypt, shown here with his head even down to mouth and nose. Now you might not see it at first, but let me just make it a little more clear. We have his mouth here and his nose, his eyeball, his whole head here obviously, neck, down to his body and torso, and he even has a tail. And when compared to some images of Anubis, you can see they look pretty similar. But there's a smoking gun, and I'm about to show it to you. You see, even in the hieroglyphics, Anubis is depicted with this, and sometimes that is in his staff, kind of like in this hieroglyph. And even in cartoon images, he's depicted with it. And I don't know about you, but what I see in that staff, I see right here, even with its long, straight, petrified staff. Now, if that's not a smoking gun telling you that this is actually the Egyptian demigod Anubis, I don't know what is. Now, I went on to find some even crazier anomalies in this terrain, like this bird-looking creature right here, and this owl-looking one right here that I'll show you in a second. But let me also point out his tail that comes down and around. And it just so happened that I found a bird hieroglyph that looks very similar to that bird outline in the terrain of Egypt. And even though this one's harder to see, also an owl in the terrain of Egypt with its face being right there. It's the dark outline there. And all of them, the bird, owl, and even possibly Anubis in one giant hieroglyph. And I don't know about you, but that head looks awfully small for that body. Kind of like it was an afterthought. Kind of like originally, maybe it was something different. Now, luckily for me, you can explore this yourself. All you have to do is take a little trip to Egypt and see what you see. Now, I know this is a whomper of a tale, but I think I've provided you some pretty solid evidence to at least open your mind to some of these things. And maybe next time I'll talk about this giant looking platypus thing that's 3 times the size of Anubis, also in Egypt. That's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed my tale of entertainment. Of course, I know there's no such thing as dog-headed creatures. No, we just live in this physical world where only humans have evolved from apes, and we live on a spinning planet, and Big Bang happened. Yeah, all that stuff. Just for entertainment purposes. You guys know I'm a satire account. Have a great day.